from a difficult childhood, growing up on a council estate in Wigan, to being bullied at school, battling an eating disorder. But the moment Kym Marsh auditioned for Pop Stars, her life changed forever.
In just a few moments, we will speak with Coronation Street's Kym, but first, a little look at her in Rover's Return action.
Hello, Rover's Return. Michelle, I'm not too late, am I? Right, lads, who's first?
Me.
You jumped! It's over! Now, a scrawny slapper with all the class of a town centre toilet.
And don't cover yourself up for my sake.
Don't give up.
Imagine I'll meet you. Come with me and sail the seven seas together.
And here she is now, and welcome, lovely to see you. It's amazing. You look at all those clips. We're just saying there, we didn't realise how long you've been there.
Yeah.
You've been there for quite a few haircuts and hairstyles.
Yeah, we had a few haircuts. 5 years now.
It seems to me that looking at your life, it's almost in two parts. There's the life before Hearsay and there's the life after Hearsay. And that life before Hearsay, as you are very graphic in your book, and we've been reading in the paper in the serialisation, very much a working class family. And the money hard to find, and when you finally end up a single mum, that you're sitting there in the dark because you can't afford the electricity.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it paints a pretty grim picture, doesn't it? But, you know, I think particularly those times when I was a single parent and I was kind of, you know, trying to bring up Dave and Emily, we all do the best by our kids, we do what we can, and it was very difficult, you know. I was kind of living on benefits, and their dad is fantastic and he does kind of his bit and everything else, but, you know, I was their kind of primary carer, and there would be times where I was sitting there with no... David would sit and watch the TV and the electricity would go and he'd go, "Mum, the Leckie's gone," and he's like, he's only 4.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was...
Well, it's funny because I was talking to our girls about that the other night, because Molly's about to go to university and we're sort of figuring out how much it's going to cost, and, you know, and how life works when you're away from the family. And I was saying that when I was in my flat, when I started work, that I feed 50p's into the meter, and then you think that's going to go. Well, I won't need it overnight, I'll just let it go. And you wake up in the morning freezing because you had to leave the meter go overnight.
Yeah, that's it, would happen.
I don't think it does you any harm in later life, especially if you are lucky and successful later on, to realise that that's what it's like.
Yeah, I agree.
But for you, you must have been a woman with a dream. You know, really, you knew what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I did know what I wanted to do, right from being very small. You know, I did know exactly what I wanted to do, and when I had David at 18, and by the time I was 21, I had 2 children. And my dad and mum were always really supportive and kind of, you know, live your dream, kind of go for what you want. And I left school without any qualifications, a lot to do with being bullied and unfortunately not being able to apply myself properly. And that's the one thing I regret, actually, is not maybe trying to get my education and going back and doing something, but school had been horrific for me. I just wanted to get away from it. But I did, yeah.
Did you feel under pressure at that stage, because you were a single mum, you were 21, 2 children, to maybe kind of forget the dream of being a singer and just go and get a job to pay the way to kind of feed the meter?
Yeah, I did. And you know, at 21, I was, like I say, I was on benefit, but unfortunately, I wasn't on an awful lot of money, and with having no qualifications, trying to find a job that's going to pay you enough money to be able to take care of your kids and pay your rent and everything else, it was a simpler option at that time.
Were lucky to escape the claws of bulimia, weren't you?
Yeah.
You say you sort of skirted and bumped it, but managed to get away.
Yeah, I was very lucky, actually, and I think that was only because of my respect for my mum, really, that kind of stopped me from delving deeper into that situation.
How bad did it get for you?
There were times where I would eat and then I didn't have to necessarily make myself sick. It was kind of happening involuntarily. So, you know, it was just kind of one of those things that...
You, so then finally, the dream happens. You reckon that you were, there was certainly an element of being, not being accepted into the music industry because you were a single mum, and that was a disadvantage. But when you finally got, it all happened, the story which we know, and there you are. It's Hearsay has been put together and the dream is realised. But it wasn't the dream that you wanted it to be.
No, it was really difficult. I mean, at that time as well, I had a lot of personal things going on, which I think I've said in the book I can't go into for legal reasons, but I had all this other stuff going on outside of the band. But, you know, you're launched into this... Don't forget, this was the first ever reality show, so nobody knew, you know, what was going to happen, whether anyone was going to be interested. And so we were kind of put straight into overkill, if you like, in this whirlwind, caught up in this whirlwind of media, and 5 complete strangers all living together, all forced to be together 24/7, you know, me not being with my children. It was just...
It was back in 2000, wasn't it? I remember interviewing you loads, and we always having to kind of really encourage you to talk about how grateful you were for this opportunity. Well, in actual fact, you were separated from your children, as you said.
Yeah, I was. I think when I started out, I didn't actually realise exactly how much time I was going to have to be away from my kids. And
well,
so
you ended up, in the band, you ended up hating each other, really.
Well, hate might be a strong word.
There was certainly not a lot of love lost.
No, we definitely had our problems and our differences, and there was tensions between the band, and I did feel very much an outsider, not because of anything they'd done. Really, it was down to what I did. You know, I kind of had my other priorities, and I had David and Emily, and I was very unhappy at that point.
Well, you got, and then you end up, as you're saying, from not being able to feed the electricity, then you've got Jack Ryder, who's, you know, sort of making advances towards you.
It was like the big showbiz relationship of the year, wasn't it, as well?
No, it was madness. I mean, you know, it was weird because when I first met him, it was like, oh my God, you know, this guy is like off the TV, and it was really strange. But then very quickly, obviously, it was just me and Jack, and we just were in a relationship and we loved each other. But there was this huge kind of attention that...
But you were very different people, though, weren't you? And then looking back at it, that way, it couldn't work.
No, it couldn't have worked. And I think, had I been that honest with myself at the outset, I probably could have saved us a lot of heartache. However, I was already in love with the guy, so you know, you can't really... In hindsight, it's a great thing, isn't it? You know. So
how did Jamie interest you?
Jamie.
What was his chat-up line?
I do.
He's
love
obviously
his chat-up
gorgeous, but you know. And I kind of he started talking to me, and he said to me, Kym Lomas, that's got a nice ring to it.
Was that literally his chat-up line?
Yeah.
Oh no, see, that's the kind of thing we get in the hub, and you go, whatever. That would never work. That would never work. It does.
It does when Jamie Lomas says it to you. Yeah.
So when are you going to become Kym Lomas then?
Well, I don't know. We're not in any rush to get married. We've had an eventful 3 years.
Well, my goodness me, you've gone through, you know, more than you would hope any couple would have to go through, and the dreadful loss of Archie, and because he was a surprise, you weren't expecting to get pregnant, and then you did, and you have the joy of that, and realising actually both of us are very happy with this, and then it started to go wrong.
Yeah. Well, it just all seemed to happen so quickly. You know, everything was great, and you think once you're past 12 weeks, you think you're safe, you know, you don't, and there was no reason for me to believe anything otherwise. You know, I'd had 2 children before, and then we got to kind of 21 weeks, and, you know, I suddenly started out having a few problems and went to the hospital, and we were joking on the way, calling me a drama queen, you know, she's such a drama queen, Kym, because I am, to be fair, and I do kind of blow things up. But we got there, and sadly, I'd started to go into spontaneous labour, and I was losing him at that point.
Well, that's in the book, and there's no reason for us to go into that now. But what you did have was the fear when you've got little Polly on the way, that the same thing might happen again.
Yeah. Well, you know, I after having such a traumatic thing happen to you, you know, you decide to go into, you know, try and have another baby, and so we did everything we could to make sure that I was monitored absolutely every step of the way, and I had absolutely the best possible care. They were absolutely amazing, and they started to see that things were going wrong at around 17 weeks, which is possibly when things would have started to have gone wrong with Archie. So we think maybe the same thing had happened then. You can't be sure, obviously, because every pregnancy is different, but it would seem
monitored again. And then you kind of went into labour again, 33 weeks this time. Is it true that you stopped at McDonald's on the way to the hospital?
That's casual.
Was that a craving?
I didn't. Jamie did. Let's get it right. And asked for a fillet of fish as well, which there's never one of them ready, is there? Do you know what I mean? It's the worst possible thing you could have asked for.
Thank goodness that is a happy ending.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank
and
you.
you're back in Corrie in September?
Yes, September I go back, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going back to work for a rest.
Yeah, I'll bet. In the meantime, this is the very honest book that Kym has written from the heart, and thank you very much indeed for coming in today.
I've been reading the serialisation this week as well. It's fascinating. It'll be a great read too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right.